So I wouldn't say it's a specific person, because I've sat with billionaires. I've sat with people worth 3, 5, $13 billion to be exact, and they don't know what the fuck's happening. Like, I'm talking to them in real time, and a lot of these guys are part of the system just as much as we're part of the system. They're just cogs in the machine, but they're bigger cogs. So I wouldn't individually point out one person, but I would say it's a systemic issue that the system in and of itself is rotten. And the reason it's rotten is because it's a system that's been created by people, and people are flawed. Therefore, the systems are flawed. And the longer that the system exists, the gaps get bigger and bigger and bigger, and you start to see the problems. So what you're going to see right now is you're going to see a reset of the system. It's an intentional reset of the system from capitalism to techno-feudalism. I know that this is going to go over a lot of people's heads, but if you can just pause what I said,
can you
go
explain
back
that?
45 seconds and write down what I'm telling you. I'm telling you, in essence, the plan of the future. So it's not that you are going to change the plan of the future, because you can't compete with people worth trillions and trillions of dollars. It's not going to happen. And I'm not in the business of fighting, right? I'm in the business of unity. And unity can exist, right? And it doesn't have to be combative. So what do I mean by a reset of the system? So a reset of the system is this idea that what the businesses nowadays, right, that are part of like the stock market, NASDAQ, all these things, their entire business model and operating system is based off of making sure that we hit the earnings of the next quarter. So right now we have an entire economy that's based off of what are the results going to be in 4 months, right? There is no long-term perspective. People are just fucking lenient. So the elites have realized that this is not sustainable. In order for them to preserve their wealth, they're going to have to reset the system. And in order to reset the system, they have to blend public and private industry. And this is going to happen through the nationalization of private companies and through banking systems. And what's going to happen is we're going to go into a potentially, hopefully not, unless you're well prepared, it won't matter, into a techno-feudalistic system where feudalism was this idea that back in the day, the rich people owned the means of production, they owned the land, they owned the crops, they owned the armies, and therefore, because they owned everything, they controlled everything. There was no rules, there was no laws, they wrote them, right? And people, the slaves, the peasants, they would work on the land, right? And they would receive a dividend off of the land, and they would have a home, and they would have their food. But they were a slave. And we're going to go back into a system where, like Carl Schwab said in the book that he wrote called The Great Reset, that you will own nothing and you will be happy, right? So people out here buying shit in the metaverse, right? Spending millions of dollars in the metaverse, even though I'm a big fanatic and an advocate for Web3 and NFTs and how they play into the real world, are buying into this garbage and this bullshit of existing in a realm that's a fairy tale and not really operating in the real world. You have people developing these online personas that are worth millions of dollars, developing these ecosystems online, but then the real world, what actually matters, what's keeping you alive, is getting fucked up by the minute. So they're keeping you distracted with bullshit, they're keeping you distracted with drugs, they're keeping you distracted with music, they're keeping you distracted with hoes, and all of this is programming. And you have, for example, this idea that who you are today, which goes back to what we were talking about, these identities and these labels that were given to you, just like labels were given to you, conditioning was given to you. And this conquest is not against any individual or any entity, but it's against ourselves and against the bullshit that has been kind of like dictating who we are ever since we were born. And if you can free yourself from the labels, you become limitless.